So, how about that God of War, huh? So I just finished God of War Ragnarok, and even though I had fun with the game, it mostly just left me feeling confused. And honestly, the title of this video may be a little misleading, because I'm less confused by the game's story and more by its critical reception. Like, don't get me wrong, I understand why people like this game. The combat is super fun. Exploring the game's open world is incredibly rewarding because side quests and hidden areas actually give you meaningful upgrades. The graphics are borderline better than reality, and this is one of the most detailed open worlds I've ever seen. Side quests feel meaningful and worth your time, and there's a ton to do, so you definitely get your money's worth. Something I also appreciate is that no matter where you go, no matter what you're doing, characters are always talking to each other. Atreus and Freya always have something to tell you, which is great because it makes it feel like they're real companions joining you on an adventure. It always bums me out when you beat a game or travel off the beaten path and your once chatty companions suddenly become mutes. And it's stuff like that that makes this game feel fully polished, a true AAA package. I get why people are loving their time with it. But what I'm a little shocked to hear is that nobody seems to have a problem with this game's story. Because let me tell you something, I sure do. But before I get into it, let me get, the classic obligatory speech out of the way. Obviously, these are all just my opinions, and I'm not trying to convince anyone who likes God of War Ragnarok that they shouldn't. If you're enjoying your time with the game, then that's awesome. I would never want to make anyone regret the time or money they spent on something they enjoy. All this video is meant to do is draw up a discussion about the game's narrative choices. So if you'd like to engage in that discussion, feel free to in the comments below. And just remember,
calling out a problem isn't griping, it's healthy.
So with that out of the way, let's get our nice, calm, civil debate out of the way. Anyway, time to talk about God of Snore.
Am I right?
Oh my god, I cannot stand Kratos for the majority of this game. He's so annoying, and what's impressive is that he manages to be annoying both on a narrative and meta-narrative level. Let's start at the beginning. In God of War 2018, you spend the whole game building trust between Kratos and his son Atreus. It's like the whole shtick of the game. Kratos doesn't trust that Atreus can make decisions on his own, and by the end, they learn to work together and respect one another. Cool, awesome, what a great father and son bonding adventure. I can't wait to see how that relationship doesn't develop for the first 15 hours of the next game. Ragnarok starts, and at the very beginning, we see Kratos deliver his first ever canonical smile when he sees how capable Atreus has become. It's great, immediately heartwarming start to the game. And it's exciting too, because you're like, oh awesome, I spent the whole last game building these two's relationship, and now I get to see the fruits of that effort. But then like immediately after, Kratos and Atreus go right back to not trusting one another. It's as if all that progress we made in the first game just doesn't matter. I get that this game needs conflict between its two lead characters, but this is literally the same exact conflict from the first game. But okay, I guess that's not like an issue specific to Kratos, it's more both of them. So why does he annoy me so much? Well, the whole first half of this game, Kratos is like, my son will not go to war with Asgard. We are not going to start Ragnarok. Okay, Kratos, fine. That makes sense. War is scary and dangerous. No self-respecting parent would wish that on their child. So, what would you like Atreus to do instead? Oh, nothing? You have no alternatives? Kratos just follows Atreus around, helping him start Ragnarok while saying, I will not help you start Ragnarok, and offering absolutely no alternatives. He has this long list of things he doesn't want Atreus to do, but absolutely no idea what he wants him to do. If Kratos was like, we aren't going to war, we're going to be farmers, or traders, or help our community rather than destroy it, then that would make sense. But no, he's just like, we're not going to war with Asgard. We're going to live in the woods and train until we die. And I get that the point is that Kratos is so fixated on Atreus' safety that he's keeping him from living his life. But just because that's the point doesn't make it any less annoying. Especially when 50% of this game is cutscenes, and 20% is stuck in a walking animation getting scolded by your dad. On top of that, Kratos is constantly annoying on a meta-narrative level because he refuses to let you, the player, do anything cool. We're not going to war with Asgard. Okay, great, but could we though? Because that sounds super fun. No, we're just gonna keep doing puzzles and literal chores instead? Cool, awesome, great. Really making every second of that 25 to 60 hour playtime count. Like when I buy a God of War game, all I want to do is fight gods and witness amazing spectacles. You know what I don't want? The main character telling me I'm not allowed to do either of those things. I saw a comment on a video that said young Kratos is like an unstoppable force, while old Kratos is like an unmovable object. And a lot of people, including myself, seem to agree with this. The irony, though, is that this metaphor actually highlights why I think new Kratos is so uninteresting. When it comes to a narrative, you always want to keep the plot moving forward. You want your characters to be active, impacting the story with forward momentum and a clear purpose for the audience to be excited about. The old God of War games were exciting because you could latch on to Kratos' need for revenge. It was exciting to tear your way through Mount Olympus, killing one god after another on a quest to defeat Zeus. Kratos was an unstoppable force, and it kept you engaged because you wanted to see how these iconic gods would try and defy him. But this Kratos just wants to sit at home and mope all day. I've heard a lot of people say that old Kratos was just a two-dimensional character whose only character trait was rage, and that new Kratos is a better, more complex character. But like, no he isn't. New Kratos isn't complex, he's just sad. He's literally old Kratos, but they replaced being angry and brutal with being sad and lame. And it's so weird because there are even lines in this game that sort of agree with me.
He still slays gods, but now he's sad about it?
You expect me to lead your armies at Ragnarok. That is Tyr's job, not mine.
It's plain to see Tyr's no war god anymore.
Nor am I. I have left that life behind.
Not killing gods, you haven't. Or else what are we doing in this realm? Forging this weapon? Your choice. You know where it might lead.
I am only protecting
I know.
I just wish he wasn't so predictable. If you haven't played this game yet, here's a fun game you can play. Just imagine what you think Kratos' arc and responses to situations are gonna be in this game. You got them? You got them all in your little head? Well, you're right. Everybody's praising this game's dialogue, but Kratos never, threw me for a loop with something he said or took any risks with his character. I just don't know where all of this expert dialogue everyone's going on about is. Is it hiding in some side quest I missed? Odin talks like a New Yorker, Atreus talks like an indie soft boy, and Kratos cycles through 3 different lines of dialogue. Again, I understand that the point of the game is that Kratos wants to be a better god and wants to end the cycle of violence, and in theory, that's super interesting. But in practice, it just makes for a super underwhelming experience. Oh, but Danny, God of War Ragnarok isn't underwhelming, it's epic and heartfelt. It says so right on the box. Sure, it's got heartwarming moments, it's got a couple of moments that even gave me chills. But for this game to call itself epic, considering what franchise it's a part of, is pretty ridiculous. There's 3 boss fights with gods, none of which ever reach the heights of that first one with Baldur, and 1 grand scale fight, which is fine, but nowhere near as epic as the fights from the previous games. And then when Ragnarok does finally happen and you do go to war with Asgard, the whole event lasts 40 minutes and feels as messy as Mass Effect 3's ending. Now you spend the entire Mass Effect series building up your army, recruiting different races to join your fight, and then at the end you're expecting them all to come together in some meaningful, impactful way, and at the end everything's kind of just wrapped up real quick and none of your choices or friends feel like they meant anything. Well, that's this game, except the only difference is, I guess the internet's not upset this time. This ending feels so rushed, and it's wild that no reviewer has brought this up. I saw an interview with Sony Santa Monica once, where they talked about how a big part of developing this game was deciding whether or not they want to turn this saga into a trilogy or finish it in 2 games. When they decide to do it in 2, a lot of the staff was nervous. How are they gonna pull off Fimbulwinter and Ragnarok in just 1 game? And the answer is, they do all of Ragnarok in 2 hours. Towards the end of the game, you and all of your friends decide that you need to assemble an army to lay siege to Asgard. So everyone splits up to recruit some people. Freya's brother, who's hardly in this game and a totally unnecessary character, goes to recruit the Dark and Light Elves. Both God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok establish that the Dark and Light Elves have been at war with each other for centuries. And it's a war that's been going on for so long that to even try and stop it is futile. Then in under an hour, Freya's brother just somehow manages to unite them. Apparently. Even if this is explained in some hidden piece of lore or some post-credit conversation, this is ridiculous. And then Sif's turn, like, literally comes out of nowhere. Then once the war starts, it's like the most underwhelming thing you can imagine. Jormungandr is there in the background for like a second, Angrboda dips in and out for a bit, Freya's brother shows up in the very beginning and very end. It's like, this is the great world-ending war we've been hyping up for the past 2 games? This is tamer than when we first fought the Dark Elves. I can't believe there isn't a scene where you fight with Jormungandr or ride Fenrir or something. Where's this game's sense of spectacle? Where's the hype? I'm so shocked they didn't split this game into 3. They could have had you going to different realms and recruiting factions to your army, and then made Ragnarok this massive, epic war. I think the thought process behind only making 2 games was that Fimbulwinter wouldn't be interesting enough to be its own game. And honestly, with how boring the first half of this one is, I don't blame them. But also, yes I do, there's so much interesting stuff they could have done. Say they did make 3 games. How cool would it have been if the second one develops Atreus' time spent in Asgard? The Atreus segments are my least favorite part of the game, but they could have easily made these more interesting by letting you play as Thor or Thrud every now and then. And they weren't like bad sections, I definitely appreciate them being in the game as a nice like change of pace. But I mean like, I don't know if it's gonna be a hot take to say that Kratos is a lot more interesting to play than Atreus. But anyway, you spend the second game fleshing out Atreus' time in Asgard, and then split that up with Kratos trying to find Atreus, and struggle with the fact that he may have just lost his son for good. Kratos could start falling back into his old ways, becoming more and more brutal the longer it takes for him to find Atreus. Atreus could develop bonds with the Asgardians, while also seeing just how corrupt and evil Odin is. So even though Atreus has made friends in Asgard, he still knows that war is inevitable because Odin has to be stopped. Then at the end, when they reunite, Atreus has to make a super difficult decision of which side he wants to be with. Then in Game 3, when Ragnarok happens, Atreus has to fight Thor and Thrud and all of the other friends he made. And it'd make for some super epic, but also heartbreaking boss fights. The third game could also do a deep exploration of the horrors of war, while at the same time giving us amazingly fun spectacles. Especially considering that this game kinda makes Kratos seem like a giant baby, when he spends the entire time going on about how brutal war is. And then Ragnarok is over and the time it takes me to cook a chicken pot pie. Like seriously, by the time it's over, you just want to turn to Kratos and be like, this is what you spent 20 hours telling me I couldn't do? Ragnarok isn't just disappointing because it's short, messy, and void of spectacle. It's disappointing because all of the wasted potential. There just aren't any good villains in this game, except for Heimdall. Heimdall fucks. We spend the whole game hearing about how awful Odin is and how he has to be stopped. But like, does he? Who cares? What has Odin ever done to us? We have no personal investment in stopping Odin. We never see him do anything evil, and all he wants is to find out what happens after he dies. Like, who cares? Let him do it. How is that a bad thing? I get that we need to see Odin in a positive light so that we buy that Atreus would trust him, but a consequence of this is that I just don't care about stopping him. Odin even offers Kratos a peace at the beginning of the game as long as Kratos stops trying to start Ragnarok. And he says no. Why? This is literally exactly what you want. You don't want to start Ragnarok. You want peace with the gods. Take the deal. Oh, but Kratos can't trust Odin. Nobody should trust him. Why though? Show me. Don't just have Frey and Mimir talk my ear off about it. I want to see it. Otherwise, who cares? I get it. I get that the side characters spend the whole game telling you why Odin is bad. I guess that the part where he kills Brock is supposed to be the turning point. The point where he like betrays you, the player, and revs up some emotional stakes between you two. But like, I don't know. It was fine. It was okay. This is like, you know, if you want to flame me in the comments, go ahead. I know that this part deeply affected some people. That makes sense. That's cool. It just didn't for me. It wasn't enough. It was sad, but I mean, we spent the last 2 games killing hundreds of people. Him killing Brock wasn't like crossing any lines or anything. The game just feels so safe narratively. It takes no risks, delivers an underwhelming epic, and nobody's motivations make any sense. It's just a game full of wasted potential. Fenrir, wasted. Ragnarok, wasted. Loki, wasted. They do literally nothing with any of these great concepts, and that's why it's so frustrating to me. God of War 2018 ended on such an impressive cliffhanger that set up such a promising future. The implications were insane. Atreus was revealed to be Loki, and you're just like, oh, does that mean he isn't actually Kratos' son? Does that mean he'll start becoming more mischievous and irresponsible? How will that complicate his relationship with Odin, Thor, and Jormungandr? And then this game comes out, and it's just like, yeah, Atreus is Loki. What, you want more? You want that to actually mean something? Like, what am I doing watching Atreus be quirky and awkward like he's auditioning for Lady Bird? You guys are 16-year-old Vikings in the year 4000 BC. What's with all this meet cute shit? If you guys like each other, just fuck already. And like, I'm joking, but my point is they don't even take advantage of the fact that they're Vikings. Even if you want to keep all the cringy, modern-sounding dialogue. What if you had Atreus meet someone who's like a Viking-ass Viking, who's into pillaging and abusing his power? And since Atreus is shown to be a little power-hungry before, maybe he's really into that. Kratos is trying to pull him away from that sort of thinking, but since Kratos is Kratos and that K in his name doesn't stand for communication, he starts losing Atreus to this new father figure. Then Atreus meets Angrboda, someone who's closer to his age, who's better with words and teaches him compassion. Hell, Thor could even fit that role. Have him become a negative influence on Atreus while he's in Asgard, which causes even more tension between him and Kratos. Anyway, if you like this game, then I'm happy for you. I really don't disagree with people who say it's a great game. Hell, I'd probably like it a lot better if the previous God of Wars didn't exist. But they do, and that's the problem. Fighting Thor, the God of Thunder, is hype in concept, but not when it's just like a regular arena boss fight with no grand spectacle. Like, it's just not enough. In God of War 3, you don't just fight Poseidon. You climb Mount Olympus, fighting his giant hippocampi, while your army lays siege to the Pantheon. He isn't just a guy in a big circle throwing things at you. He's an event, a godlike battle. There are cool moments in Ragnarok, but nothing that warrants the name Ragnarok. And I could excuse all of this if the story just wasn't so repetitive, Kratos wasn't so annoying, and the ending wasn't so rushed and hollow. This is probably going to be a lot of people's favorite game, and that's awesome. But to me, it'll just be a pretty fun game with a lot of wasted potential. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, my intent isn't to dissuade anyone from liking this game or to make any developers feel bad about their work. I really, genuinely would never want that. I just want to drum up a discussion about the game's narrative choices and maybe see if this video resonates with anyone who agrees with me. And if you like this video, make sure you check out some of my others on this channel as well. And I will see you guys next time.
But now I always seem to freeze.